Hello, hello, my beautiful people, and welcome to another episode of Woman to Woman with Joanne. Today, we are so happy to introduce to you our guest, Miss Kimberly Campbell. She is a former Mississippi State Representative, and she is the director of AARP, the Mississippi Division. Y'all help me welcome Miss Kimberly Campbell. Hello, hello, my beautiful people. Welcome to another episode of Woman to Woman with Joanne. As you can see, I'm sitting here with the beautiful Miss Kimberly Campbell, and I can't wait to share her beautiful story with you guys. So, Kimberly, welcome to Woman with Joanne's stage.
I love it. I'm so excited to be here with you. You know I love you and support everything that you do. So I'm excited to be a part of your program today.
Thank you so much for coming. I'm excited to just get into your life and share you with the world, not just with Mississippi, but with the world. So talk to us about growing up in Mississippi. Where were you born and raised?
Jackson. Jackson is home for me. Born and raised. My father is a longtime Jacksonian, his family. My mother is not. So my mother has a very interesting history. So she's not from the South. She has grandparents that were from the South, but she grew up everywhere. My grandfather was an Air Force man. So she actually finished high school in Okinawa, Japan.
Okinawa, Japan.
Okinawa, Japan. So she did not come to the South until college days.
Wow.
But anyway, so I've got a rich, history of family here, family, on the East Coast and West Coast. But my life has been here. So I love Mississippi. I'm a true Southern girl. Went to finish from Callaway High School. Then I matriculated through Mississippi State University for undergrad, which I'm a true bulldog.
True bulldog.
True bulldog. Went to Auburn University, which of course is in Alabama for my master's. Worked back in Jackson for several years. And then I went to law school to Ole Miss, University of Mississippi School of Law. So life is
you have done it. And there's so much more to tell that
yes,
I
can go on. That's why it's like, now how much do you want me to tell you?
Well, talk to me about your experience. I always ask everybody this because my goal is just to show Mississippi in a positive light, or what your experience is. So tell me your experience growing up here in Mississippi.
I'm very fortunate because I had a very unique lens to growing up here. My mother was a trailblazer for a Black woman, a Black Southern woman for her generation, was huge.
Yes.
She actually started the first statewide Black program on ETV at the time, is what we call it,
ETV.
which was Faces. She was the hostess. Then she became the first Black executive producer for Faces. And so I say all that because that enabled me to be around so much greatness. Many of our civil rights leaders of the time, I was able to be with and to meet, their families, the Evers families, very close to my family and so forth. My mother interviewed Coretta Scott King, Cicely Tyson. There are pictures of me, being knee-high to a duck, sitting on the stage similar to this with her, meeting some of these dignitaries. And so Reverend Jesse Jackson, so all these things, when you're just in a room around people like that, even at a very young age, it just makes a difference. You just get things through osmosis.
Yes.
My mother also served in administration with Governor Ray Mavis, Governor William Winter on the task force with him was a dear friend of hers. So when you're around that, that opens up your eyes to a lot of different things, and you really have a love for Mississippi, but you also understand what Mississippi has gone through.
Yes.
You understand some of our painful chapters, some of the ugliness, but you can't stop there. And that's what I always want to tell people. That can't be the end of the story, though.
That's right.
Because
that's right.
We're still here. We're still standing.
Yes, we are.
And there is love and honor and respect that has to be given to African Americans that are standing strong in the state of Mississippi.
Yes, exactly. Girl. You are, girl. This is going to be an awesome show. I feel it.
I feel it. We're just going to let the spirit take over.
Yes.
We'll have church in a minute.
Girl, we get to sing it and worship.
Yes,
I'm telling you.
Yes.
They'll be like, this is the kind of show we want to see.
That's right. right. That's right.
Awesome. Kimberly, talk to me. As I was preparing to interview you, I saw
Yes.
that you were a lawyer for some time. Talk to me about
Yes,
that.
yes. So I practiced law for about 15, 16 years.
Oh, wow.
And I was practicing as well as when I was serving in the House of Representatives.
Yes.
And so many people, let me back up a little bit, ask me what made me run.
Because I do.
A lot of people
I
ask,
want to know that.
what made me run? You know, it was one of those things that when I made the decision to come back and stay here, and again, and I'm not knocking all of our wonderful, brethren and sisters that have not returned to Mississippi.
Right.
I have a brother that's doing very well. I mean, and he's lived between New York, Connecticut, and now Pennsylvania. He will never be back in the South. I get that. I'm proud of him. He's done well. Many of my friends are likewise. They're everywhere, but here. And quite frankly, there was a time in my life that I was like, why am I here? Why am I here? I need to get out of here too.
Right.
I've had friends and even mentors through the years that were like, you need to go. This is not for you. You need to go. You can spread your wings and do more. But something in me said, everybody can't leave Mississippi.
Yeah.
And so when I came back, I had many of my educators, white and black, from, high school, junior high. And by the way, my father was a lifelong educator. He
taught math, right?
Yes, algebra, yes. And a football coach. So he taught for over 45 years. So that's a lot of, fellow teachers that were close to me as well. And you would always hear people say, whenever I went off to state, and then when I went off to Auburn and went off to law school, they always said, don't forget about home. Right. Come back home. Right. Don't forget. We get you all so well trained, and then you leave. Come back.
Take all of that talent.
Right. You take all that talent outside the state. And so that was a part of when I came back. I said, well, to really, have a huge impact on things, because everyone has a different calling. My calling was always policy. I wanted to shape policy. And so I felt the best spot for me to do that was the legislature.
Wow.
And so I ran for the House of Representatives in 2007, won, and I served 9 terms, so 9 years.
That was awesome.
That was, and so during that time, I was also practicing law, and I was also a special youth court judge. So I had like 3 hats at one time.
Yes.
But it was all good, but then, God comes to you sometimes and he says, it's time to go.
Yes.
It's time to go.
And if you don't do it, when he say do it,
yeah, I always tell people sometimes pray for God to enlarge their territory and to open up, windows of blessings for them. Yeah. But then I said, but you've got to move your feet. Yes. You can't ask God to make a move and you're not willing to move your feet. Because many times he's not going to keep screaming.
No,
he'll just whisper to you. He'll show you the way, but you've got to have the faith to override the fear, to step out there and say, I trust you, Lord. Yes. I may not be able to see everything down this tunnel, but I trust that you know what you're talking about. And I'm going to step out here, even in fear, I'm going to trust you and have faith. And that's what I did when I decided to leave the legislature and take on the position with AARP.
Awesome. Awesome. Girl, this story is awesome. Look, y'all, we're going to take a short break. I know y'all want more, and it's coming. It's coming. So we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back with more Woman to Woman with Joanne.
During a public health crisis, it can be hard for those facing domestic abuse to know what to do. Being confined in the same space as an abuser can increase threats to safety, and leaving an abusive relationship during a crisis can be even more difficult than normal. You can help. Ask them how they want to connect and be creative. Be supportive and believe them. Help them think through how to stay safe. Following these tips, you can help victims of domestic violence stay safe during COVID-19.
Whether buying or selling a home, service counts. Lynette Sutler with One Star Realty is your trusted realty agent with over 10 years of experience and ready to serve you, giving you the star treatment. Call Lynette Sutler today to get the service you deserve.
Okay, you guys, we are back. And of course, we're still here with the lovely Miss Kimberly Campbell. So Kimberly, I want to talk a little bit about being in the Mississippi legislature and what it was like to be a woman in the Mississippi Mississippi legislature. Talk to me.
It was interesting because there were several things working there. One, at the time, I was one of the younger ones. I was also first into politics. You know, I did not have a previous office before, previous political office before that one. I had also been an incumbent, and so sometimes there are sore feelings from the friends of the incumbent.
Yes.
I was also, again, African-American, and then I was a woman.
Yes.
And again, this is still the state of Mississippi. So when you're dealing with who sits down there in the legislature, and again, I was in the House of Representatives, you have people that are coming from some smaller communities that are still very back in time with their mindset. And honestly, I think of one story in particular. So we have what we call, it's kind of like a yearbook where they take your picture and they have your schools, your religion, and all this type of stuff listed. I had a member come up to me when it was first published. And he's no longer there, by the way, but he's a Caucasian male. And he just kind of rudely throws it down at my desk on the House floor as we're sitting there. And he starts pointing and his face is all twisted. And you know me, I'm like, well, first of all, hello, I am, you are who? That was my first issue.
Right.
But then I was reading, I was like, what? I don't understand. What do you, use your voice? Tell me, what is your problem? And he said, is all of that right? And I read it because I thought maybe something was misspelled.
Right.
And I realized he was talking about my schools. Oh. And he said, did you really go to those schools? Did you really graduate from those schools? So, and I won't tell you all what I said.
Yeah.
Because I let Ruth Campbell come out. For the people that know my mother, she had to show up and show out in that moment on my behalf. It came out of my mouth, but it was definitely her spirit.
Yes.
But I say that to say that let me know how backwards so many of us still are. But again, I think it's important that's why we need to be in those rooms.
Yes.
That's why we need to be at the boardroom table. That's why we need to be in the legislature. That's why we've got to be in these circles around people that do not look like us, because they've got to get used to us being there, first of all. Yes. Not that we care about their comfort level, but they need to understand who we are and our value. And then when they see us, it's like, oh, okay, well, I just can't put you in a box of what I thought, women were, or what I thought Black women were, or what I thought a younger Black woman is. And that's a fruitful discussion that you have to have. So representation matters. So it's important to be there. Life in the legislature is difficult from both sides, whether it's from your own party or the opposite party. Because if you are an independent thinker, you don't just go along to get along, whether it's your party or not. And I was one of those. And so sometimes everybody's not always with you.
Right.
But, I'm a faith person and I believe in prayer. Yes. And every single vote I took, I always prayed. And my prayer was always that it's not just right for a party or a group, but that this vote is right for what's best for the citizens of the state of Mississippi. That's right. And I could go to sleep at night, because every vote I took, I stood behind, and I stand behind them today.
Awesome. That's awesome. Well, I'm glad you were there for 9 terms.
Yes.
So glad that you were there.
It was a journey. I'm proud of the work I did. A lot of my work was dealing with human trafficking, stalking, domestic violence, crimes against children.
Definitely.
And of course, helping, Jackson get what Jackson needs, which is still a great need. But I enjoyed my time. I really did.
Awesome. And I saw some of the, it said that you helped write some of the, I hate to say, is it bills?
Yes.
Or laws as it pertains to human trafficking?
Yes, human trafficking was my baby. So, each year, things grow and we have a much bigger, platform now with the legislation. But when I was there, the bill that I worked with was really the first comprehensive plan for human trafficking that really put us in line with a lot of federal legislation at the time. And also I expanded domestic violence. I expanded, penalties for domestic violence, helped with legislation that also dealt with stalking, expanded what is stalking. I give you an example. While I was at what we call the well of the House, which is where you're standing in front and you're debating the bill. So when I was at the well of the House presenting one of the stalking bills in particular, I had a member to stand up and I thought, well, this is the problem, because many of his questioning was, well, just because a woman no longer likes a guy, then she's always just going to say she's being stalked by him. So he doesn't need to go to jail for that just because he wants to drive by her house and see her. And I thought, oh my gosh, first of all, that's a very elementary response about what I'm
Yes.
talking about.
Right.
But let's have a deeper discussion. And so, you've got to go deep and you've got to touch those areas that are not fun. Everything's not fun. And you've got to do things that, quite frankly, that you're not going to be liked by everybody.
Yes.
But that's not the goal.
Exactly.
I was raised that that's not the goal. The goal is not to be liked by everybody. So you do what you think is best for citizens, and of course for women. That was important to me because I am a woman.
Right.
And I was always concerned about children as well. So I'm proud of the body of the work that I stood behind while I was there.
Yes, and you were awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
know.
Thank
Talk
you.
to us, Kimberly, about what made you leave the legislature, but because I think you left in the middle of a term.
I did. Well, actually, because our terms are 4-year terms. And so I had just been reelected for my third 4-year term. So I had just done a year out of those 4 years. So I still had 3 more years on that term. And, it's funny because a year prior to that, I was really thinking, this is not my end game.
Yes.
No offense to the members that served 30 years or what have you. God bless them. I think we all have a different calling.
Yes.
But I knew for me, that was not my end game. I
Right.
never intended to stay in the legislature forever.
Right.
That was not the end for me. And I really began to get into prayer. And also, just the division was getting to me. There was a time to where you could be Democrat, Republican, we can understand our base, understand what we support, but we don't just fall out. I don't just hate you because you're in the other party.
That's right.
And I will compromise with you. You give me something on this bill, I can give you something on that bill.
Right.
It really was becoming all or nothing. And I really hate you. And I said, this is not the place for me anymore. But I also knew God had something else for me to do.
Definitely. So talk to us about getting started with AA, or tell us what brought you to AARP.
Yeah.
And then we're going to take a short break. We'll come back. But let's get into that.
Quickly, God, I'm telling you, God is amazing. So my prayer my prayer was beginning to say, God, I feel as though it's time for me to go. My work here is done. So I just need you to, open up the floodgates and let me know what my next move is to be. I kid you not. I was sitting on the House floor one day. We were getting ready to go into session. I was looking over some bills. I get a text on my phone from a dear friend of mine that's in DC, and basically saying, you need to call me because I've got a good contact on a position with AARP, and I think you're perfect for it. And I've already told them that they need to talk to you, but I hadn't even talked to you about it yet.
Oh, wow.
And of course, I'm thinking, AARP, what? I'm not, I'm thinking here, and they've got a presence here in Mississippi. So, anyway, so that's how it started. So literally, it was God saying, I got something for you, knocking at the door. Went, talked to the people, started the interview process. And it's pretty intense. AARP is intense. And over about a 3-month process. And then I said, well, it was one of those offers that you just could not refuse,
Right.
to be honest. You could not refuse this. And I said, it's time for me to go. This is it. It's time for me to go. So my life now is between here and DC. So I spend a lot of time in DC. Quite frankly, my family sometimes thinks, I think you're going to end up leaving us after all. I feel it. AARP is crazy about you. I think they're going to put you on the national level. So
Right.
I serve on a lot of national groups for AARP besides my state work that I run for the state. So that's why I'm back and forth to DC quite a bit. But I love what I do.
Awesome. So y'all, we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back with more Woman to Woman with Joanne.
Whether buying or selling a home, service counts. Lynette Sutler with One Star Realty is your trusted realty agent with over 10 years of experience and ready to serve you, giving you the star treatment. Call Lynette Sutler today to get the service you deserve.
During a public health crisis, it can be hard for those facing domestic abuse to know what to do. Being confined in the same space as an abuser can increase threats to safety, and leaving an abusive relationship during a crisis can be even more difficult than normal. You can help. Ask them how they want to connect and be creative. Be supportive and believe them. Help them think through how to stay safe. Following these tips, you can help victims of domestic violence stay safe during COVID-19.
Okay, you guys, we are back and we're still here with the lovely Miss Kimberly Campbell. So Kimberly, talk to us about why you chose to take the position with AARP.
You know, that's a very good question. It was tailor-made. It really was custom designed for me. So when I found out it would have layers of advocacy work, so especially on the federal level. So I deal a lot with the federal congressional delegation, our own and overall, everyone in Congress. So there are hearings that I've been able to be a part of and so forth. And so that was an interest to me. Again, that policy, I always love policy.
Yes.
Of course, still working with my state level former colleagues. So, we do a lot of state level legislation and advocacy work, but also the community. So we do a lot of community events, community activities. Right now, my life is wrapped up into COVID. So I do a lot with COVID tasks, trying to get information out about the vaccine rollout. The governor and Dr. Thomas Dobbs have been a part of many of our, panels and teletown halls. And so all of that stuff was really tailor-made for me. It was interesting to me. The communication stuff, the media work that we do to carry out messages, we say within AARP to tell our story.
Yeah.
And then so it was just perfect. I felt it was perfect. I felt it also gave me a taste of the national lens, which I needed. I said earlier, I stay here and I love being here, but it's nice to be around others that don't just have our one note mindset that we can have sometimes in the South.
Yes.
And so it's nice to be in different circles. It's nice that I get to travel.
Yeah.
I love that. Sometimes the travel is a bit much. My life is on a plane a lot sometimes. But it was nice. And so one of the areas that we deal with is caregiving.
Yes.
And so that was very, important to me. So I took the job with AARP in 2016, built a house so that my parents could move in with me in 2018. And just to back up a little bit, so my mother battled cancer 5 different times.
Oh, wow.
So she would, at her first diagnosis at MD Anderson, they said, get her affairs in order. You barely have a year and a half.
Oh, wow.
And she went 10 years with 4 other cancer battles. And so I say all that to say that, you got to be a praying woman, first of all.
You
You got to know Jesus
the
Christ.
doctors are always going to try to give you their timeline.
You got to know. And you would have just had to have known her.
Yes.
And so, but as we were going through it, I knew with battle 3 and 4, I knew that we were going to turn the corner soon. I knew it was coming. And so in 18, it was just such a dream to have them move in with me. I've spoiled them rotten. And that was also a part of my work with ARP, dealing with caregiving, dealing with seniors that have isolation issues, and being there for them, making sure that they're not, going to get any scams or frauds with their money, because again, the legal attorney and the daughter, not going to happen here.
Exactly.
I watched every single thing that my parents were involved with, legal, financial, medical. You will have to talk to me.
Yes.
Not just to them. So, because you don't want any of this smoke when it comes to them, okay? Let me just say that. So, so when we were getting to even the next chapter of that, which was in the last year, where I really knew we're turning the corner.
Yeah.
We're turning the corner. And that's really where faith comes in, where you really have to say, you know what, God, at some point, the prayer for 10 years was always healing.
Yes.
It was always, praying for healing, praying for time, praying for physical healing. But then there's a time that the Spirit comes to you and says, sweetheart, I have honored that request. There's a different prayer you need to give me now. And the Father waits on you to give him the right prayer. He doesn't tell you what it is because he wants to see your spiritual growth. But he lets you know, I'm waiting, daughter. I'm waiting for your right prayer now. And so the prayer then had to become, I need you to give me peace into understanding that you're getting ready to bring her home. And I've got to be at peace with that. And so then the prayer becomes, I want her to have full, total, and complete healing, which can only happen when she's on the other side of the River Jordan. And that's what happened. In fact, it is 11 months today that my mother transitioned to glory. And I am grateful that I was a part of that process. When it was time for her to be in hospice, I had great friends who I all love, and they were right. So I never want to say that everyone needs to do this, because I think sometimes it is too much, and you do need to have them in a wonderful hospice facility. But I said, no, we're going to do hospice at the house. This is where I've had her. This is where she will be.
Yeah.
This is our plan. She's going to be surrounded by the grandchildren, the dogs, the cats. I'm going to handle this.
Yes.
And it was, there's some dark moments in that. There are some painful moments in that. But again, when you have the type of faith that I have, I was so honored to be able to provide that type of care for her and to, really walk that journey with her. Because I told her when she got the first diagnosis 10 years ago, I said, Mom, I'm going to hold your hand and we're going to walk and fight through this journey together. I won't let go until you're ready to take up God's hand. And she said, okay, Kimmy. Keep holding my hand then. And when we got to that point, my prayer said, God is getting ready for you. And I have to get ready to let you go. And so we had some really deep conversations with one another during some of those hours. There's a period, if you haven't experienced it like this, there is a time to where they know. And my mother was such oh my God, that woman's spirit. I just thank her for loving me through that process. Because as a mother, she was a mother to the very end. And she was like, baby girl, there's some things I need you to continue to do. I don't want you to let this be your block. She said, I've seen other children that they just stop living when mama goes. Their life was never the same. She said, don't ever let that come out of your mouth. She said, because that feeds the spirit. The more you keep saying, oh, my life will never be the same since my life. She said, well, it won't be. It won't be. She said, and guess what? It's not supposed to be anyway. She said, but don't be negative about it. You have to say, you know what? My mama have a blessed life. Mama is good. She said, baby, mama is at peace with this. She said, God gave me 10 years that I was not supposed to have. My mother was 3 months shy of being 81 when she left. 3 months shy. In fact, the year prior, we were in Costa Rica celebrating her turning 80.
Yes.
So sister girl lived a good life, baby. Sister girl lived a good life.
Yes.
But in that, there was such a testimony of walking with faith and understanding, because I think the journey was more for me than it was for her. Because she was at peace. She knew her God, she knew her Lord, and she knew her time. And she knew she was leaving. It was for me to understand that journey and for me to say, I think God is like, you preach all the time about faith, Kimmy. You always tell other people to hold on to me. She said, and I think it was the test for him to say, now I'm going to see how much you're going to keep loving on me when I take her home. I truly believe that's what he said. And I was determined I was not going to lose that battle. I was not going to lose that test. I was not going to fail that test. And so, and in that moment, I said, we're going to walk this journey together.
Yes.
And it was beautiful. It was sad, but it was beautiful. And up until literally, there's a period where they would just go days to where they are not verbal. She's just sleeping. Mm-hmm. And I knew when we got to that point, it was just me ministering to her then. I was just doing all the talking. But before that, I am just so thankful for that woman. She told me to do my thing with AARP. She even told me, she said, I don't know if that's your end game either. Because that woman was, she said, because I'm still expecting greatness out of you. She said, this might not be the end. She says, I want you to keep breaking those glass ceilings.
Yes.
So that was the type of woman that raised me.
Yes.
And so, the journey began. And so, I have to tell you, I know we're going to come back shortly and I'll tell you about the last chapter. Well, it was at peace. I'll just tell you that it was peaceful. I ministered to her. I prayed her Prince on the day of her transition, her Prince, because she loved Prince. Oh. I played her Regina Bell. She loved Regina Bell. Yes. I played Tasha Cobbs. And in the end, with the break the chains, there's a point where the chains are going to fall off. And I found myself saying, Mama, the chain's coming off today. Yes. I felt that it was going to be that day. I just kept saying, Mama, the chain's going to come off today. And you're going to see something you've never seen. Because you're going to see the King. And when I told her, if you're ready to go, I'm ready to let your hand go so you can get God's. And I'll be at peace. 22 minutes after I said that in her ear, she left. She left. God, and I thank God to this day. I thank God for that. I thank him for keeping me for these 11 months. Because it's only him that's made me still be able to do what I need to do. Right. But God is good.
God is good. God is good. Kimberly, this is a wonderful story. I wish we had more time to hear more and more and more.
It was wonderful. It was wonderful.
I keep telling them, 30 minutes is not over. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your
Thank you.
story with us and sharing your beautiful mom with us.
Thank you. Thank you.
I know that she was a beautiful woman.
She was. She
You know.
was. She was truly my hero. Still is. I talk to her every day.
Yes. Well, thank you, Kimberly.
Thank
for
you.
coming.
Thank you.
Okay, you guys. Thank you guys so much for joining us for another beautiful episode of Woman to Woman with Joanne. We look forward to seeing you next time. Love y'all much. Bye-bye. If you would like to be a guest on the show, or if you'd like to sponsor an episode, please reach out to us. You can email us at joanne@womantowomanwithjoanne.com.